And now I'd like to introduce colleagues of mine in Public Library Services, Kathleen Alexander, Catherine Bryant and Andrea Kerr. And I think it's going to be a very interesting next hour.
Thank you. Well, as Ellen said, I'm Kathleen Alexander. I'm the one in the picture with the big trophy. And I'm here with my colleagues, Catherine Bryant and Andrea Kerr. And those of you in Libraryland will notice that that's alphabetical order. It's just the way the library works. Reassuring, isn't it? But just, we don't want to seem like pedants. We won't actually be appearing in alphabetical order. We'll be mixing it up a bit. So you two go back to the golf house. But as you can see on your program, our day jobs are in Find Legal Answers, Drug Info and New South Wales Net statewide databases. But we also work in a team to deliver professional development programs. Today we'll be talking about a program we've been running for New South Wales Public Library staff, which focuses on reference. And along the way, we'll show you some of the features of the State Library website which have proved most popular with our audiences, that's you, and useful for your reference work. So, I must say we are supported today with the wonderful work of the photographers in our collections. A lot of work from Sam Hood and a good deal of work from Andrea Kerr, who can do magic with PowerPoint. So, essentially, the program Collect Connect Community seeks to highlight how public library staff can use the State Library website to assist in reference work with their communities and enhance their own working practice and professional knowledge. In this way, the State Library website becomes a kind of professional reference tool. The program is called Collect Connect Community, and it makes connections between the diverse collections of the State Library of New South Wales and the communities that we both serve. Funny to have mentioned making connections. I don't want to say any of you look old, but does anyone remember making connections? Few hands, yes. It was practically a camp. It was a 2-day program. You had to stay overnight. We'll talk a bit about it in a few minutes, but it was originated in the 1990s. Basically, it was run by the State Reference Library staff here at the library, and it had a focus on reference support and document delivery. They were the themes of the day, and it was held here in Macquarie Street. You had to come here to do it. There was very much an emphasis on meeting key library staff. It was kind of like, you know, understanding the library through our expertise. You kind of had to know who ran document delivery and you give her a call and you could ring Betty and, you know, imaging or whatever. So it was meeting us and essentially, you know, of the photo on the right, you had to go through an intermediary. So that was the kind of theme of the course because that's what things were like back then. Of course, now you can access our services directly from the website, but we are always still here if you need us. And these two photographs also remind us that, like you, we've always been in the business of providing information. It's just the way that we do it has changed. So, take a deep breath. We're back in 1997. So, back in the 1990s, the State Library website looked like this. And this cut is thanks to Trove's archived websites. This snapshot is from 1997. If you can read the actual hyperlinks, quite kindly linked in blue for you, they're more like notice board announcements, information about the library rather than actual library services. I remember in 1992 when I did my library course, I wrote a whole essay on hyperlinks. They were very exciting. I didn't really know what they were, but I managed to do a 2,000-word one on it. I must look it up. And not surprisingly, back in the 90s, the Making Connections overnight program did not feature the website very heavily. Probably because in those days we had to telnet to the catalogue. Anyone remember telnet? Anyway, I'm not really sure what it was. The library didn't need to worry about Google Analytics either or how many hits we had because Google didn't actually exist. So that was 1997. Fast forward to 2003, and it's important because 2003 was when the Making Connection program had moved from a 2-day program to a 1-day program. And the main reason for this was it was pretty big ask to ask participants to come from their day jobs for 2 days into the city, especially if they're coming from regional areas. So we kind of put it all in 1 day. In 2003, as you can see, the website had a little bit more colour, not a lot of colour. It had a few more bells and whistles, but not a lot of movement, not a lot of images, and not a lot of actual services. We've moved on a little bit because you'll actually see there's a services button. Okay. Now, okay, 2009. The Public Library Services section, where Catherine, Andrea and I work, we took over the running of the Making Connections program. It seemed to make sense because we have the relationship with public libraries. Interestingly, this was exactly the same year that David Lee King, I believe he's actually spoken at this seminar in the past, wrote his seminal work about building the digital branch. I mean, that is 10 years ago that he wrote that article. It appeared in American Libraries magazine, and it also appeared in Library Technology Reports. Now, a bit of a plug from New South Wales Net. Library Technology Reports is available in full text through the 12 statewide databases that you get from New South Wales Net. So if you want to go back and have a look at this article, you can at your library. His thesis was that we should be looking at library websites as fully fledged branches, not just providing information about the library, but as a mechanism for delivering actual services. And it was a pretty big idea at the time. So, just as in the physical branch, the digital branch needs to be staffed and supported. These are my highlights to a piece from the Library Technology Reports. I think personally there's a bit of a tendency, and we have it here, to basically put stuff up on the web and have this notion of build it and they'll come. You know, we just whack it up there and people will find it. How could they not find it? But one of the key points David Lee King made in 2009, and I think it's still very true 10 years later, is that we really need to support the digital branch with education and client support. He says in the first highlight, we need to teach our customers what we're doing and how we're using these tools and what they can do with it. And importantly, he says we need to give our staff a refresher. He says that in the end, it's still about the library making connections with their communities. It was ever thus. So that brings us to a very fresh survey. I think Ellen tells me that it's being published, it's available online. So the Reference and Information Services group that bring you this seminar did a survey of New South Wales public library staff. And question 5 was, what are the recent changes in information services in your library? And it's pretty amazing because 16 of the answers were about websites. Our websites have all got bigger and bigger, and sometimes I worry that it's becoming harder and harder for people, ourselves included, to have a really good idea of the whole of our offerings. We have so many silos of information on our websites, our catalogues, our local history collections, our digitised images, our e-books, our e-resources, etc., etc. But I think knowing our stock and knowing our collections is still a cornerstone of good reference work. And very recently, we got this survey. So in answer to that question about what were the recent changes, this is what you said. I'll give you time to read that. So these are still very real challenges for us, just keeping up to date with our own stuff. Has something a little strange happened on that right bubble? Oh, it's the thing. It says continuation of promoting our website as the 4th location. So that's what that says. Okay to move on? Okay, now we're in 2009. And look, what do we have on this web page, 2009, that we didn't have in the past? People. Pictures, yes, and pictures of people who work here. Also, if you've got really good eyesight, you'll see Juliette Binoche in the right-hand corner of the library. My brush with fame. She was in the foyer and I went out the back door. She came to visit us, so she's on the website. 2009, bit of library history synchronicity, this was also the year we introduced a web tour to the Making Connections program. So the one-day Making Connection program featured lots of talk from state library staff and a walking tour around our buildings, about an hour or so of walking around. But it just seemed odd that whilst more and more of what we offered was online, our course, Making Connections for you guys, for public library staff, was very much bricks and mortar, show and tell. So it was high time we got into the web sand pit and explored. So what we did was we divided the group into 2, and while half the group walked around the buildings, the other half of the group went to the computer training room and explored the State Library website, our digital branch. We swapped over so everyone got both the hands-on and the on-foot tours. And what happened was, it was a surprise. The web component proved really popular. People were saying they wanted it to be longer, they wanted more time in the computer training room. And it became increasingly difficult to shoehorn the content that was on our website into that time frame. Fast forward to 2016, when the State Library unveiled its new website, and at the same time we were redeveloping the Making Connections program. The time seemed right to go all the way with a fully digital hands-on program. The new website was full colour and image rich. I remember someone saying image is king. There was much more multimedia, and the site supported a higher level of interactivity. And may it just look like a website to you, what it was really the culmination of a whole lot of really big projects. One was the e-records project, which was a very large project, getting all of our card catalogues digitised and available online, because before, to know if we held something, you'd have to physically look at the card catalogue. We'd also undergone a major program of library catalogue and systems renewal, 4 major systems that Andrea will be touching on later, including a new discovery layer, a single search catalogue search. There'd been mass digitisation of our archival holdings, and also an expansion of our e-resources, including large perpetual access newspaper collections. So clients, including yourselves, could explore a greater percentage of our collections than ever before, and the library was much more available to the people of New South Wales than ever before. So, in response to that, we piloted a new approach called Collect, Connect, Community. I love these 2 juxtaposed images. It takes 3 of us to match Jean Arnott, though, the famous Jean Arnott back in the day. You'll see Andrea, Catherine, and I disturbingly not in reverse alphabetical order. But what's funny is there's sort of quite a lot of similarity between those photographs. You'll see we've swapped the blackboard for a data projector. We've swapped the catalogue boxes for iPads, but what we're still doing is working closely with public library staff. It's just that now it's all online. So a little bit about the course. Basically, the purpose of it is to introduce public library staff to using the State Library website for reference. We're really trying to make your clients, you be able to make your clients aware of what we have to offer, and also make your job easier, particularly through the pages that are specifically for you, and we'll go into a bit more detail about those in a minute. We really changed the way we organise the learning, very much hands-on with scope for exploration and individual discovery. And we also introduced a new virtual co-worker, Samira. So now there are 4 of us. I think Samira's surname must begin with a D, I think, do you? You'll hear more about Samira later. In terms of course delivery, basically, you know, we moved from sort of meeting experts to you guys just talking to each other about your own jobs and discovering things on the iPads. I mean, the iPads is really simple, but it just made a massive difference. I have spent a lot of my life talking to people's backs in computer training rooms. And I can't tell you that sitting around in a group and not having the barrier of a PC just really changed the vibe of the whole program. Rather than us talking to you, you guys and we were all talking together, so it just made a huge difference. And in terms of staffing, it's the 3 of us who can do it, and we all work from different areas in the library. We might be lady golfers by day, but we're also librarians. We can deliver the course in combinations, either the 2 of us or the 3 of us, and we can also combine it with the other training that we do, and we've certainly done that when we've gone out. So it can combine with e-resources, LEAC or drug info training. Now, feedback is also really important. When we piloted the course, we did a very formal pilot, but as we go along, we always get people to fill out a feedback form. And it's not just it's really important because it helps us finesse the course, and we've made a lot of big changes as we've gone along. But what's also really good about the feedback form is often you guys use it to tell us stuff about the actual website. And we've been able to feed that website feedback, if you like, back to our web team. And we've actually made changes to the website, and in particular to the PLS pages, based on what you've told us or us watching you and seeing that you can't find stuff, or that we've signposted things badly, or we need to make it clearer how you get to the information. So the feedback, I sort of put it in 3 themes. And I've done that because I think it might be useful for you too, because I think it's the first time we kind of asked a lot of people, and now we're up to quite a few hundred people have done the course. The first one is Unpacking the Collection. And if you can think about your own websites in terms of this feedback, basically, people always appreciate looking at the website. It's a really simple idea. And I think I've certainly in the past had people say, you teach people a website? I mean, why do you need to teach people a website? But the simple thing is that library people don't have time to do that themselves. And I guess your clients don't have to do that themselves. So it's worth, as David Lee King pointed out 10 years ago, training our public and staff. The next one I've called Taming the Beast, because I do think that not just our website, but all of our websites have just got bigger and bigger. And I think that we sort of end up with quite a lot of silos of information. We got a lot of feedback from public library people that before they went to the course, they felt overwhelmed by the size of what we had to offer, and it just seemed like too big a box to unpack. And I guess that might be the way that a lot of our clients feel about our website, or your clients feel about your website. I mean, are they overwhelmed, and what can we do about it? And look, sometimes it's probably overwhelming for us as well. You know, I know it's there somewhere on the website, but where exactly is it? There's always scope for us to guide our clients through this journey, just as we would in the physical branch. And I think the last theme from all the feedback was just people not knowing what was there, the element of surprise. You know, people just saying, oh, I didn't know that was there. Wow, you know, the multilingual glossary, it's super awesome, you know. I had no idea the stories could be useful. You know, I didn't know there was Indigenous services section that could help me with services in my library. So Andrea is going to talk a little bit about, and Catherine also, about a little bit about some of these surprises and some of this unpacking of the information that's there. So finally, and disturbingly not in alphabetical order, I will call on Andrea Kerr. This is a snapshot of Andrea and Catherine in the stacks. They're making their special selections, and the themes that they're going to be doing are search, discovery, and the big green button. So over to Andrea.
I guess I'm the one with the glasses. Okay, so what we're going to do now is talk about the different aspects of the course. Now, our course is called Collect, Connect, Community, and it talks about collect, how we collect, what we collect, those kind of things, how we access that. Connecting, how we connect the community and make connections between some of the items that we have, all the material and the diverse kind of stuff that we have. And then finally, community is about what we do for our community, or what we do to help you serve your communities through the PLS pages. But it also is what we're doing in terms of getting people the course content is around, first of all, search, because, you know, people want to search what we have. Then talking about discovering and in a sort of serendipitous way. And finally, I'll leave the big green button for Catherine to talk about. So in the course, it might seem a little bit strange, but at the beginning of the course, we take a trip back in time via black and white film to the 1940s, to a time when access to the collections of the then Public Library of New South Wales was very much through the physical building next door in the Mitchell Wing. And just because it's fun, we're going to show you the film now. So I'm just going to turn it on. And the sound does start. It starts out silent, just in case anyone thinks it's a silent film.
One of Sydney's proudest institutions is the Public Library of New South Wales. Bronze doors of Australian explorers lead to Carlisle's Perpix. In books lies the soul of the whole past time, the articulate, audible voice of the past, when the body and material substance of it has altogether vanished like a dream. The visitor steps onto a marble mosaic map in colour of Abel Tasman's discoveries up to 1644, an accurate reproduction of the original. Inside the main reading room, the third largest in the world, with 50,000 volumes and room for 500 readers, students and public have open access to the card index catalogue, which facilitates the search for books. online tiers are only a small fraction of the 500,000 volumes which are filed under the library's various sections. There is no age limit to learn, no limit to the library's scope. Under the Tudor chandelier of the Shakespearean Memorial Library are 2,000 volumes, including the only copy in Australia of the rare first collected edition of Shakespeare's work of 1623. Known as the First Folio, it is valued at £12,000. The library's stained glass windows portray the bard's 7 ages of man, from As You Like. The library's manuscript section specializes in the repair and preservation of old letters and documents of historical interest. Elsewhere, in the library, valuable books are carefully rebound. Then the titles stamped onto the leather in gold letters. In the research department, students are spared the labor of copying necessary information by hand by the photographic service which photographs the whole page required for a small fee, a lasting and accurate record of the subject. Country Circulation Department sends reference books direct to country students, as well as maintaining travelling libraries. The Dixon wing, a bequest to the state from Sir William Dixon, includes 350 paintings of such historical figures as Captain James Cook. A visitor looks at the likeness of the man responsible for the ship's log, which she holds in her hand, a journal of the proceedings of His Majesty's bark Endeavour. The Mitchell Library, a gift of Mr. David Scott Mitchell, contains thousands of priceless volumes, manuscripts, and paintings of Australian historical interest. Some are kept under glass for safety, such as Captain Bligh's log of the proceedings of His Majesty's ship Bounty. The Mitchell Reading Room is open to the students of Australia, and neither age nor station is a restriction to those who wish to enrich their knowledge of old Australia. In addition to the bequest of one of the world's greatest national collections, David Mitchell left a rich endowment to the library. This heritage of knowledge is free for all to absorb and take out into the world.
Okay. So you might wonder why we show that film. Firstly, it's a way of covering the history of the library and introducing the major collections in a much more succinct and somewhat more interesting way than is possible in a traditional chalk and talk lecture. It's boring when people get up and just say, in 1826 we started, blah, 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 that kind of thing. But also it serves a purpose of opening up a discussion about library and reference services. As a group, we use the film as a basis to examine the similarities and differences between the library services of the past and what was served back then in the 1947 and today. The services shown in the film, such as collecting, conserving, describing and displaying material, are still at the heart of what we do in our profession. We don't allow people to basically lick their finger and turn the pages of the first folio anymore, but very much so that kind of thing of what we're doing is still the same. And many participants are actually surprised to see that services that we think of as modern, such as imaging services, were already in place back then, so you would have seen them taking like a photograph of that. And the machine that they use looks very similar to the machine. It's a different machine, but the same sort of concept of what we do for digitisation. So, and you can see a photograph of, that's a picture from our reference department back in 1943, that picture. And it's also interesting to note that since the opening of the galleries next door, and this is a plug for anyone at the end of the day if you want to go and have a look, heritage items such as the log of the Bounty and the captain and the portrait of Captain Cook and the rest of our hung painting collection are once again back in display because they weren't for a while. However, the medium of information delivery has changed substantially since the 1940s, and that's mainly due to the advances in technologies such as digitisation, automation of tasks, and of course the advent of the internet. And often when we talk as a group, we say, well, what's different about then and now? And people say all sorts of things, and then we point to the board and say, well, what's this behind us, which is the internet, to talk about. So clients no longer need to trawl through the cards unless they have a huge nostalgia for paper records, and people still do, they love the cards. But you don't need to find material that the State Library holds, because as Kathleen talked about, we had, as the e-records project, we converted all of those records. And paired with the mass digitisation of items from the collections, this allows members of the community and people in your communities to not only find out what is in the collection, but also see many of the books and manuscripts, letters and artwork in as much detail as if they were in the building. And today it's possible to be, anywhere on the other side of the world, in Burke, in Blacktown, to see Captain Cook's portrait, or even read the log of the Bounty in fine detail on your PC or even on your phone. And so we really love the last quote of that film, and that's why I was like, why did it cut out? But basically the last quote talks about, it says, this heritage of knowledge that is free for all to absorb and take out into the world. And that's what we're trying to do through the course, and also through the material that we've got here, is provide access and help you access that material to take out and share with your clients or assist them. And that really sums up what the website and digitisation and all those things allow us to do since then. Okay, so in the first section of the course I talked about that we talk about search. It really focuses on search, and this is where we explore the collections of the State Library via the catalogue. And before we delve into the catalogue, we give an overview of the different types of material that is or has been collected by the library and how this is catalogued, because this actually underpins what you will find in the catalogue. Because behind our single search catalogue are actually two catalogues and also our full text articles, but not everything that we have in our e-resources. So we have the catalogue of published materials, and so that's all the things like books, journals, newspapers, our ebooks, posters and maps, because they're actually published, and other published material. We also have our unpublished material, and that's where we differ in some ways, and we might seem like we're a little bit have similarities with a museum, because we collect amongst the sort of traditional things like manuscripts, pictures, photographs and ephemera. You would have seen for the last election, we did a big call out for people to send us election material, for example. Unpublished maps, things like stamps and objects, and people are often surprised to learn that the library collects real things, or realia, such as Patrick White's typewriter, Dame Melly Melba's hairpin case, and we seem to have a whole lot of human hair in our collection that you can explore in jewellery. And so we talk that through with the people in the course, and also that these collections are underpinned by our digital repository, and that's where digitised images of both archival material, so unpublished material, but also we do have some digitised books in there as well that we've digitised. So books and maps that people might not realise, and that's all underpinned. So what you're searching for across is, using our discovery layer, is a single search, and you will be able to delve into that material. And so then, we talk about the background to what's in the catalogue, and then we lead into some practical exercises using the single search catalogue and exploring the range of items found in the collections. So for example, just using a single search for the word Anzac, you can access a range of items such as, printed books, but films, reference entries from online encyclopedias, journal articles. There's a map, for example, of the contemporary map, and also real objects such as the medallion that was produced after the war to commemorate the Anzac campaign. So that's just a snapshot of the types of things, and we go through that with people. And it should be noted that we're not trying to train people to use a catalogue. So it's not like systems training or that kind of thing where we're saying do this and do that, because the catalogue is always changing. We're about to change again we have different features coming, and that's where Kathleen, Catherine and I need to stay on top of that. I've actually worked on some of the projects where we run focus groups to change, and things will be changed. So the course is nimble in that way, that we're not sort of writing a manual, this is how you do that. What we're trying to show people is what they will get when they search the catalogue. We also know that aside from us, you're not going to be using our catalogue every day, so it's sort of getting you to know what's in the catalogue and how you can refine your search. What happens when you get 16,000 items, how you can refine those things down, and also how to understand the results. We also, because everybody likes to think their catalogue is really intuitive and that people could just grasp that information, but we know that's not the case necessarily. So we also highlight some of the other things to do with the collection, such as and the catalogue. For example, the links to Trove. So every sort of published item has a link out to Trove. Our interlibrary lending policies. What if you find something that's in the Mitchell Library? What can you do? Can you borrow it? Those kind of things. The idea around legal deposit, why we collect some material here, and also the access conditions. So, but particularly with unpublished material, highlighting where people can find out that we're not trying to educate everybody about all of our policies, but we're showing people where to help you interpret the records for those things. And then we lead on further when we look at search to demonstrate other finding tools that the library has, such as our online research guides, and we do some practical activities around those that are available to assist people to find items in our collection. So that whole first part is about talking about search. So in that first section, we're focusing on assisting people to search for something that is known. And this may be for an actual known item that you're looking for, the log of the bounty, for example, but it might be that somebody knows the title of what they're looking for, or they know the subject area, they know they're looking for information about Captain Cook, that kind of. And so that's where the client has an idea of what they want and what they expect to find. So they're expecting to find books, or they're expecting to find something for their assignment or for their personal research. But the next part of the course is about discovering information that's not previously known. And it's really an opportunity for staff to play and explore on our library website, because we all know that despite what our clients think, we don't all sit around reading all day, and we don't often get the time to explore. And so what we do for this section of the website is that in small groups, participants are asked to explore the stories section of the State Library website. So the stories, have many people in the room looked at stories on the State Library website? Some, yes, some people have. If not, you might want to go back and have a look at them. The stories on our website are a way of connecting collection items online or on a theme, which are on a theme or a time in history, and helping the public connect those with our collections. Stories showcase people, places and ideas that are inspired by the collection. The stories section takes some of the many and great unique library collections and items and basically turns them into a narrative story. Now they vary in length and complexity, some are short and some are much longer, and there's a variety of topics covered. So currently you'll find stories on voyages of discovery, the first Indigenous cricket tour of England, the magic pudding, and the 40th anniversary of the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras, and that's just to name a few of them. And as I mentioned, they can be incredibly detailed. Some of them are, may be quite long and have chapters and have a lot of interactive features and cover a variety of collections of material, or they can be short and focused. And what we do in that part of the course is we just ask participants to just choose something that takes their fancy. So we're not saying go and look at this story, and so people can explore those. And currently, one of our most popular stories is the story of Sophia O'Brien, and this is Sophia here, which is part of the Works in Focus series, and it focuses on 10 of the paintings that are currently on display over in the galleries. And this painting of 21-year-old Sophia is from 1841, and it was actually painted 6 months after her death. So she died suddenly, And the artist, Maurice Felton, and we own a couple of his paintings, had to travel swiftly by steamer to be able to take a plaster cast as a reference of the portrait. So that's one of the interesting things behind it. But the story also details the history behind the painting. So it tells you the story of how it came about and how we came to get it. But it also talks about the conservation work that was undertaken by State Library staff here for it to be put on display and digitised. So when we look at the story section, we take sort of a flipped classroom approach where the groups share their learnings with the rest of participants. So we ask them to, either tell us what it's about or tell us some of the features of it. And so then we as the trainers are able to take the information that we're given and highlight features from each story mentioned. So in this case, we could highlight the work of our conservation care and imaging team, as well as the research that's undertaken by our curatorial staff who've researched that, and then how this links in that people can use this information that they've found in the stories to link to other things in the catalogue, because every catalogue, every image or map and those things link out further. So it's a stepping point that people can take, and it's to do that. And I guess this provides participants with a real life example of the work that we do at the State Library and its application, rather than us getting up and saying the conservation staff do this, digitisation, like it's putting together all the work that we do into one and how people can find out that. And a bonus from these discussions is that it also provides our participants with ideas and inspiration to take back to their own libraries. And it might be as simple as something of saying, look, when we do, a display or an exhibition, we might want to take some of the ideas. Obviously, we've got a big staff of conservation and imaging. It's not necessarily going to be something that someone can do, but it's the ideas and the inspiration around those things as well. For that period. And feedback from, as we've seen, Kathleen pointed out, from this part of the course indicates that this is one of the most popular parts of our course. Okay, so now you may have been wondering what the big green button part of our course is all about. And Catherine's going to tell you all about that.
Right, so what does the big green button have to do with reference? Before I go on, how many of you have actually seen this button at the bottom of the State Library website? Oh, quite a few, that's good. Well, for those of you who haven't seen it, it actually contains a world of useful information, we like to think anyway. The role of public library services, where we all work, is to provide advice and support to all public libraries and councils in New South Wales. So some of the information you'll find behind this button and a Public Library Services page is the Public Libraries Directory and map, training information, our contact details with pictures, information all about the specialist services like drug info, find legal answers, multicultural services, New South Wales Net, library legislation, more interesting than you might think, Library Council guidelines, information about library subsidies and grants, the e-newsletters, for example, in the libraries. That's open for submissions at the moment. If you want to put one in, you can find out how to do that on these pages. And things like our blog and all the news. And email lists that you can join. Just briefly, you can find your way around the site by using the navigation bar at the top or use the search box. And it's worth mentioning that once you're in this part of the website, it's a sub-site of the State Library's website, and the search is really good. Well, it is on all the website, but it's actually particularly good on this sub-site. Once you're using search here, you're only searching this sub-site, you're not searching the entire State Library website. Now, when we first delivered this course, we subjected our participants to a demonstration of the website and then gave them a chance to explore. We quickly realised that was pretty boring for our poor participants and decided to include a scenario-based training. I'd like to introduce Samira, our fictional library staff member. Samira has just started her very first library job. She loves it, but has started at a very busy time. Her supervisor has given her a number of tasks to complete in the first few weeks. That's the scenario we give our participants, and then they're divided into small groups to find the answers to Samira's tasks. Some of the tasks we ask people to find the answer to are: the library has a lot of children under 15 coming in recently and trying to borrow MA15 plus DVDs. The manager wants to know if the State Library has any guidelines or information about dealing with this and other issues to do with children in libraries. We try to make it easy for people to include the word like guidelines, hoping people will search for the word guidelines or notice the word guidelines in our navigation. Another question is, it's budget time and the library is looking at its e-resources. Samira has been asked to provide a list of the e-resources the library receives for free from New South Wales Net. As well as finding out the answer to that, we get the chance to talk a little bit at length, or a little bit about one of our services, New South Wales Net. Samira has been put in charge of Find Legal Answers, my service. Well, mine and a few other people. She's been asked to check that the library's law collections are up to date. Where can she see a list of the Find Legal Answers toolkit titles? Now, most of your libraries have got a LEAC contact who maybe does that work for you, but I think it's really good for everybody to know what's in the toolkit, how they can find out what's meant to be in their branch. New library signs are needed in community languages. Where can Samira find the multicultural glossary? Hint, you can search the words multicultural glossary and you'll find it. To find out how to write books for children or internet training in Arabic and Korean. If you haven't looked at the multicultural glossary, it's a lot of fun. It's an excellent tool. I won't go through all the questions, two more. Another one is, part of the library's strategic plan is to improve services to Indigenous people. Where would Samira find a copy of the Indigenous Spaces strategy to download? And there are some World War I photographs of soldiers in the local studies collection. The local studies librarian wants to digitise them for the library's collection. Samira needs to find information about digitisation best practice in public libraries. The participants have a little bit of time to find the answers and then they report back. And they tell the group how they found the answers, whether they used search or whether they just used the boxes on the page or whatever they did. And that means everybody gets to find out the answers to all the questions. So back to my original question. What does all this have to do with reference? We like to think of the information behind the big green button as your own corporate or professional reference library, information that helps you do your job. So I'm just going to illustrate this with 3 examples. Imagine you've just been put in charge of Find Legal Answers in your library. You know nothing about the law, you're a little bit scared of the law, if the truth be told, and you've got no idea where to start. Unfortunately, the person who was in charge before you had to leave work suddenly and you haven't had a chance for a handover. On the Public Library Services page, you'll find everything you need to run your library service. A summary of how to manage it, information about updating the toolkit and law books for libraries collection, a list of suggested legal pamphlets, all about the training courses, information about promotional materials and ideas, and the programs you can run, including the Piano Forte, which deals with elder financial abuse, and the newly developed and just about to be put on lawyer talks on avoiding scams and the NDIS. And this professional reference, of course, feeds into your reference services to your clients. So by providing legal information, which is an up-to-date toolkit, legal pamphlets available for your clients to take, and trained staff, looking at these legal information programs, you're actually answering legal inquiries from your clients, whether those clients have come in and asked you something or not. If all they do is pick up one of the pamphlets you've just put out there because you've discovered them on our Public Library Services page, you've done a reference inquiry. In the second scenario, you notice an increase in the number of unattended children in your library and want to know the library's responsibilities in relation to children. The manager's not there, you're just keen to find out yourself. On the Public Library Services page, behind the button, you'll find Library Council guidelines. And these are guidelines issued by the Library Council for New South Wales public libraries under Section 10.5 of the Library Act 1939. You don't really need to know that, but that's why they're there. There are guidelines on a number of topics: digital practice, privacy, the internet, standards and guidelines, how many loans, all that, a whole bunch of guidelines. I won't even go into them. Public library buildings and children. In the Children's Policy Guidelines, you'll find the legal framework around children's access to electronic resources and restricted material, child-safe principles, reporting incidents, the Working with Children check, and, yes, unattended children. Many people work under the assumption that there's an age where a child should not be left in a public space unattended. But what is the actual law? This is important information for a council, for a library, and also for a council, because there are many other public spaces in your council area. And the answer can be found in the professional reference section behind the big green button. Does anyone want to know the answer? Yeah. And I'm actually taking this straight from the policy. New South Wales legislation does not specify a minimum age at which children may be left unattended in public places. The Children and Young Persons Care and Protection Act 1998, New South Wales, is concerned with protection of children in particular circumstances rather than with age alone. This approach is practical for public libraries. For example, a 7-year-old child who uses the library constructively on his own for an hour after school while waiting for a parent may not be a problem. On the other hand, a 10-year-old child who is left in the library every day of the summer holidays from opening time until closing time is potentially at risk of harm and presents an unreasonable burden on the public library. So basically, libraries may set their own minimum age policy, if desired, as a guide for parents, guardians, carers and staff. It's not black and white, nothing in the law ever is, but you can't just say, no, you can't leave a 10-year-old here because we don't think so. You have to have a policy behind that, but this gives you some guidance about what that policy would be based on. And in my final example, you'd like to improve your reference services to your Indigenous community, but are not sure where to begin. Guess what? Once again, in your own professional reference section, you can find the online toolkit Indigenous Spaces in Library Places, which contains information, resources and case studies. That's something produced by our Indigenous Services team here at the library in consultation with Public Library Services staff. And I had a look at it yesterday just to remind myself, and it's actually excellent. It's got some really good case studies, which I really respond to them. You could see what other libraries have actually done. And it's got some little tasks that you can do. So with the CCC, as we call it, Collect, Connect Community, so far, since we started the course in 2016, we've done a total of 400 public library staff have attended 30 sessions. And I just did the maths 2 days ago, and I could not believe it. That's actually right. I haven't rounded it up. We've literally done 400 staff in 30 sessions. That's worked out really well. And we're going to be continuing to do them, of course. We hold the courses here at the State Library, but we're also able to go out to you. We've delivered the courses in a number of places, but in particular Campbelltown, Orange, Blacktown and Bathurst. Basing the course on the website means we're no longer locked into doing it here. Yes, when we're here we do a tour, but it's more like the icing on the cake. It's not the vital part of the course. So doing it on a website means we can actually go out to you. And it also can be delivered by itself or with another training course. For example, we could do LEAC and drug info in the morning, CCC in the afternoon. We've actually done that before. And there is space available in the next course on the 24th of May. I think we've got about 6 places available. The course in June is fully booked, but we will be advertising more dates for the second half of the year. Just that they'll be sent out on the managers list and also the PLM list. So if you want to send staff or attend yourself, you can. So what have we learnt from all this training? Firstly, getting back to David Lee King, we look at the State Library website not just as an information board, but as a mechanism for delivering actual services. But we can't just put our website up there. We can't just put services and information online and expect our clients, which is either the members of the public or in fact you're of course one of our major client groups, to just find it and know how to use it. We have to provide continuous training and continual support. Speaking of continually, we continually change the course based on feedback and our observation. If any of you attended the course back in 2016, it will be very different to the one we're delivering in 2 weeks' time on the 24th. Using iPads is better than a computer room. It makes for a less formal and more interactive session. It also allows time and the right environment for public library staff to talk to each other and learn from each other. We spend less time delivering lectures and more time on group work and discussion. Demonstrating a website is boring. It is so much better to allow the participants to discover the website for themselves. And this is obviously something which has happened as we've all become more mature and we all know how to use a website, or at least know that there's probably a search function somewhere and know that there's navigation. So it's much better for you to be able to explore with guided, us as your tutor guides. And using a persona, I think many people use personas when they're developing websites or training courses. I'm not quite sure why where we got Samira from, but we like Samira. We're not changing her name. But using a persona just makes the scenarios more real. And often in the training courses, we do have someone who's just started a library course. So sometimes we change, we've had people there who've only been doing library work for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. So they've been sent along to the course as part of their training. And it's always really nice because we can pretend that they are the new library member with this really, manager that makes them do a lot of work. So that's really the conclusion of our talk. Unless anybody has any questions for me or any of my esteemed colleagues.
Take screen share off so we can see any questions coming in.
Oh, okay.
So for those of you on chat, please feel free to put your questions up and we will share them with the folk, or they can come over and read them themselves and share them with other people. So any questions? Any comments? Oh, they...
Thank you. I've got a question about the search function. I've not used it yet. I'm asking. Is it a way? Can people suggest their own? Can people suggest their own topics to add to the search, the stories?
Good question.
I don't see why not. We don't have a collection tool for that,
Yeah.
but it's a really good idea that we just bring back to the web team.
Yeah.
And also I wonder whether we do keep an eye, of course, on what searches are going in, and whether we do have a loop and thinking, well, there's a lot of searches for Anzac, or there's a lot of searches, you know.
There's
Andrea would bring that up with the web development.
The web team are doing a lot of work, and there is functionality on the website for people to log in. When you go to the website, it says log in. You can join and you can tag things, especially in the catalogue. You can add your own tags, and we use Library Thing and Syntactic. Yeah, Kathleen knows what those things are. To join things in the collection, and people can tag items and that. A lot of the stories are related to either exhibitions or other work that we're doing, so you'll see things that we've got that we publish, but that's not to say that, you know, in the future that could be an option, and in fact, yes, that's a suggestion I like.
I just had a topic idea of something that I was interested in, but I know that there's Trove articles about this particular topic, and the State Library has a painting in its collection.
What's the topic, if you don't mind?
One of my ancestors set up a bathhouse, the first bathhouse in Sydney. It was on the Warnaloo Bay, and so there's a beautiful image, which I'd like to see at some stage, of illustration of the bathhouses. It could have been Sydney's first mikvah, which is the Jewish women's bathing house, but it wasn't advertised as such, and this was about 1833.
No, I think that's something that you have a conversation with.
Yeah, and also
sometimes the curators, when they get an interesting question, will then write an article for SL magazine, or, you know, get stories from lots of different.
And we also, I should add that at the culmination of that part, so when we've talked about stories and search and discover, we actually point out a lot of the just sort of traditional services that we have, and one is Ask a Librarian, which is where we get feedback from, and we explain, this isn't to do with that particular question, but we explain the difference between you can refer your clients to fill in their own feedback, or you can use the public library's form, and we talk to you, and we talk through a lot of those things and about providing feedback and those kind of things. We go into and we even do things like visiting the library, because if you come here, if most people's interactions with the library has been their public library, their school library, perhaps the university library, we're a lot different. We make people put bags in lockers, you know, the access to, not everything's on site, stuff's in storage. It's not the same as coming in and browsing. So we go through a lot of those things, and the way we do it is through those practical activities, rather than me standing up and going, do you know what legal, you know, going through all those things. And I guess that's what Catherine was saying about our lessons learned. Our lessons learned is that the interactivity between participants and asking spontaneous questions is much better for people to learn, and everybody takes back something that's important to them, or that, you know, they can use in their work. So that we do that thing, but that's one of the things we do actually do a whole thing on.
That would start with the written question.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you.
No other questions? Okay, please join with me in thanking these three. Now, lunch, I might just stop recording because it will be the lunch announcement. We'll be back online with the next link shortly before 1 o'clock. See you then.